2 years ago, I tasked myself with finding the most popular or the best movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I did this by looking at numerical data and creating an algorithm that would spit out a final ranking system. Well, now that list and that video is outdated, so it's time for a refresher course. Since that video came out, more movies have entered the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and even some of those films that were in the video last time have changed a little bit in their ratings. So today we're going to revisit that, and I'm just going to go over the top 10 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe based off of this ranking system that I've developed. Now we're only doing 10 because it's crazy to say it, but there's 28 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to date, which is May 2022. Before I go any further, let me explain this algorithm that I've developed to you. So first things first, I took every film in the MCU and found its tomato meter rating on Rotten Tomatoes and the audience score rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I also took the score from IMDb and the amount of money that the film grossed worldwide. I took all four of these components, ranked each film by said component on a scale of 1 to 28, 1 being the highest, and then took each value and found the average. All of the averages for each of the films were taken and ranked on a scale from smallest to largest, smallest being the highest value, and thus the highest rated film. In the event that any of these films tied on their average scale, the median was used as a tiebreaker. I'm about to put the films that came in 11th through 28th on the screen real quick, just for your viewing pleasure, and then when you see me next, we'll go over the top 10. The film starting off our list in 10th is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Phase 2's 2014 film is probably one of the most talked about films and beloved, at least solo superhero films in the MCU, even to this day. The film draws a lot of inspiration from Ed Brubaker's 2005 run with the bringing back of Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier. And there's a lot to love about this film too, just having a very spy espionage type feel to it. Next at number 9, we actually have the next Captain America film, Captain America: Civil War. Even though in my opinion this film more functions as an Avengers film that eventually becomes a Captain America versus Iron Man film, it's still a Captain America film, the closing of his trilogy, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of action, pretty long, 2.5 hours. We see a lot of our favorite characters at this point, and it really set the trajectory for what would come later on in the MCU. In 8th place, we have Thor: Ragnarok. This film really changed Thor's place in the MCU. Even though I personally really like the first two films, it's no secret they didn't really perform exceptionally, to say the least. But when Taika Waititi took the reins of the Thor franchise, he really changed it tonally. Thor's a little more funny, goofy, new characters like Korg and Valkyrie. Overall, Ragnarok is just a really fun movie. It puts us right into Infinity War afterwards, and it has a lot of fans excited for what Taika Waititi has in store for us next in Thor: Love and Thunder, coming out this summer. In 7th, we have the movie that started it all, Iron Man 2008. Jon Favreau produced this, created it, really set the MCU into motion. It's a classic film. It's really grounded in itself. It's early on, so it's not too worried about setting up the grand scheme of things. It more focuses on, this is the story of Tony Stark. He used to be this guy. He became Iron Man. He's this person now. And it created this character who we all know and love now. This film not only changed the superhero film genre as a whole and kickstarted the MCU, but it really changed the character Iron Man as a whole, being a B-list character and now an A-lister. In 6th, we have Spider-Man: Far From Home. This was the last film we got to see before the 2020 pandemic shook things up, but it's the conclusion to Phase 3, taking place right after the end of the Infinity Saga. In this film, we really see Peter go off away from home, as in the title, Far From Home. And here he delves into what it means to be a hero and dealing with those responsibilities. All right. Top 5. In 5th, we have James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. This was actually the first MCU film that I got to see in theaters. Came out on August 1st, 2014. This was the first film that really introduced us to a whole brand new set of characters in the MCU. Up to this point, we really had the 6 founding Avengers, and then the big 3 had their sequel films. And now we're being introduced to a whole new team of characters who really even before this film, didn't have a huge following in general. But this film gave us a band of misfits who we've all grown to know and love, and this film has a charm to it that really sets it apart from the rest of the field that is the entire MCU today. In fourth, we have Avengers Infinity War. This is the film where everything started coming together. We finally see Thanos in action doing big boy, big baddie villain things. In terms of a film being comic booky, having a lot of comic booky elements and components, this is probably the closest we'll ever get to that, maybe at least in the MCU, I would assume. But it's a great, huge 2.5 hour, 2 hour, 40-minute action flick. It's a lot of fun too. The huge battle on Wakanda, the battle on Titan, and then it ends in a crazy way. Thanos won? Number 3, we have another Avengers film, and it's the original, The Avengers. This film came out in 2012. It ended phase 1, and it was a smash success. It was the first film in the MCU to gross $1 billion worldwide. And this film really proved that this formula does work. You can set up several different films with several different characters who live in the same universe. And if you write it well and do a good job of world building, you can bring these characters together, and it can work. And it worked pretty well with this film, and it proved to us that, hey, Marvel's got it going on. Top 2. In second, we have Avengers Endgame. I would assume it surprises some of you that to see Avengers Endgame in second, but when I talk about the film that's in first, maybe it'll make a little more sense. But anyways, Avengers Endgame, the highest grossing film of all time. It's a 3-hour culmination of work that took 23 films to get through. The end of the Infinity Saga. It shows the Avengers jumping back in time, assembling the Infinity Stones, and trying to get their friends back and ultimately take down Thanos again. Regardless of whatever your opinion of the film is, it was a cultural phenomenon, and it really bookended this 11-year era that the MCU was, and still is. Finally, our first place, according to this algorithm that I developed, the most successful, most popular, best film in the MCU is Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home just absolutely shattered the fandom, and I mean that in a good way. Spider-Man Far From Home left us on what ended up being a 2-year cliffhanger of Spider-Man's identity being revealed to the public. So what does he do now? And Spider-Man No Way Home kicks off instantly right from that point. This film was really just a huge success and fan favorite for people who have been keeping up with Spider-Man since day one, whether it was the comic books, the Tobey Maguire films, the Andrew Garfield films, because you guessed it, Andrew and Tobey both make appearances in this film, and so do some of their villains. This film's quite an experience. It's hard to put into words, especially if these characters really mean something to you personally, but it does not surprise me at all that this film sits atop the list of the most popular, most successful, best film in the MCU. So there you have it. That is the updated list of how you definitively rank the MCU films, at least according to this algorithm. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Does this algorithm work? Was it successful? Does it make sense to you guys? I'd like to hear your feedback, and I'll probably be back with another one of these at some point. As long as Marvel continues to make these films, I'm going to continue to update this spreadsheet, and we'll see where it takes us. That's all I have for today. So until next time, take it easy.